Hello and welcome to a different corner of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Manish Verma and I'm here to grumble with my partner in FPL crime. We grumble game week to game week. Dr. Luman Ali. Dr. Luman, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, because as always, it all depends on how Liverpool did at the weekend. And not only did Liverpool do well, but both of us were there to see it. How was that experience for you?
So I have been to Anfield only once before in my life. Then on Friday evening, you tell me, hey, I've got a spare ticket for Liverpool Villa. And immediately I thought, it's an evening match. I'm going to be able to get out of childcare duties. That's fine because evening they're in bed anyway. Okay, we had to leave a bit in the afternoon, but it was fine. We had no family plans. It was a free run. So I went to pitch to my wife, look, I've got a spare ticket. And all of a sudden, I thought it would be an easier sell than what it was. It was a bit of a tough sell, which is why the reply to your text message about "Are you in or not?" came a bit later. But I managed to convince the wife because I couldn't wait for a Anfield Saturday night under the lights match, and not only any match. Villa are a good team, and I was really looking forward to that. And there are certain players in your life that you'd like to see live. I've been lucky enough to see Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, a Messi once played at the Emirates Stadium for Argentina. I went to see Messi. Kaká was in that game. And actually, Mo Salah would probably be on that list of players I'd like to have watched in the Premier League era. He is probably, I would say, as an Arsenal fan, my favourite Liverpool player of all time, I would say.
Wow,
And watching him live was probably was just enough for me to want to push my wife to be like, please let me go. So yeah, how was it for you?
brilliant. So, did it live up to expectations, the trip?
It did. It did. It was. I mean, Anfield under the lights Saturday night. The atmosphere was much better than the last game. I went to watch a fairly drab 1-0 Liverpool win against West Brom, and whilst it was quite, You'll Never Walk Alone was nice the first time round. It was even better this time round. The chants, I love the Mo Salah chant, but I think the Ibrahim Konate song went up the most in the night, I think. And it was just it was a good atmosphere. Everyone around. I was with you, Lumen. And what's not to love about that? Seeing you watch a Liverpool match is I've seen you watch it on TV before, but live, Lumen, you go full hooligan. You go full hooligan. You were right in there, mate.
I think it's important to emphasize here that it wasn't just two of us, we had someone else with us.
We did. We did. Shout out to Tarek for sorting out the tickets in the first place, and he even treated me to a Mo Salah scarf. What a gentleman he was, and I did sport it. Though, even being an Arsenal fan, I did wear it the whole evening. Partly because it was freezing cold, but partly because it was Mo, and get into the spirit of things.
Did Mo Salah live up to expectations?
Mo Salah for me absolutely did because you see him in live and you see actually he's quite slight, it looks like, but the way he uses his body was one thing. But the second thing, which really kind of just took me, was his touch. Just so clean every time. And the thing with him is he also tries something every time, and most times executes it. So his invention was there, his technical ability is there, and speed. You can see at age whatever 30 plus, he's still got the speed as well. And I did get the full Mo show, and I was willing it on for my fantasy team as well, and a goal and assist from him. So absolutely, it did deliver. I also got the Darwin Nunez show, the complete gamut of Darwin Nunez, a very well taken goal. Few minutes later, just skies it 1-on-1, and I don't understand it. A header that he possibly could have done better on.
Have you
The
seen the
whole
highlights?
Darwin
That header,
Nunez.
it was a sitter. Was there?
How was it for you? How was it for you?
Oh, obviously, fantastic experience, fantastic company. It was great to see this iteration of Liverpool under Arne Slot playing more
Mm,
controlled football, not forcing it, not going helter skelter. There were times when I would have liked to have been even more boring and just passed it round the back to get Villa to come on to us and then open up the space. But Villa parked the bus for large
yeah.
stretches.
So, as an Arsenal fan, as a neutral to that game, what I want to do have is be entertained. And so I'm like, oh, someone break the line, someone try something. But as a Liverpool fan and surrounded by Liverpool fans, you need those 3 points because, of course, going into the game, Man City had just lost. You knew Arsenal going to Chelsea the following day. So actually, a boring 1-0 would have suited everyone in that ground. And you're right, you would have liked maybe them to be a bit more boring. I would have liked them to be a bit more adventurous. But I think this says a lot about the Arne Slot era, I feel like. I feel like maybe I didn't watch a Klopp team live at Anfield, so maybe I can't say. But I just think this Liverpool team is very pragmatic. On a game where you need to go and harass and hassle, and if it was at 0-0, I think we would have seen you guys try more. But it was at 1-0 for that most of that game. And I think, okay, I saw Gravenberch at one point just stand on the ball and
Yeah.
just like look around. And no Villa. I mean, it's not to say that was the word boring comes across as negative. If you're a Liverpool fan, you would absolutely take it. As a neutral, we're like, please do something more. And as a Villa fan, you just want them to be pressed. Villa didn't do anything in that second half, and I can't understand why. They
I,
just,
I,
or maybe Liverpool just suffocated it. I don't
yeah,
know.
I think a wider point is teams playing a low block are horrible to play against. But if you score that first goal, there's always this um, expectation that you should push on for the second, right?
Yeah.
I would say that once you score the first goal against a low block team, what you do is you play it round the back, draw them out, and then hit them and create the space. That's what you
Mm.
do against low block teams. But how did the experience relate to FPL?
So for me, I was trying to think of a way of kind of linking the two together, the weekend's experience
Yeah,
and FPL. And I actually think it does because Mo Salah, as I picked out, is a player and maybe on the day the only player on the pitch who tries something.
yeah,
And he's so good because he tries something and it executes. And actually, when you look at your FPL team, the reason you don't have many Man City players, even though they're arguably the best in the league, over the past few seasons, the reason you don't have many Man City players, apart from Erling Haaland, even Kevin De Bruyne, you don't really have him. Occasionally he goes off, but not really. It's because these you get FPL players in who try something, who need to be adventurous and do something other than just go through the 90 having a steady stable game. You need that guy in your FPL team and ideally in your whichever team you actually support to try something. Cole Palmer is another one. He'll get the ball and he will just do something. It might not work, but you know what? He'll get the ball again and try it again. Mo Salah is another one. I feel like Bukayo Saka is a little bit more conservative, but he's so involved for Arsenal that he will always be involved in something. Again, Cunha at Wolves is another one of those players. Emil Smith Rowe, you could argue. Bruno Fernandes is another one of them players. All these guys who did well this week, by the way, are those players who need to just do something extra.
well, that is interesting what you say because a lot of those players you mentioned are the main creative forces for their teams. So
Hmm.
it's just a question, maybe then, of picking players at the right moments. But on FPL, what was interesting this week was you had an almost even split of when games took place. You had six on Saturday, four on
Hmm.
Sunday. So if you weren't doing too great on Saturday and you had players left to play on Sunday, there was chance to make it up. So how did you do this week? And it would be interesting to know where you stood on Saturday night and then went into
Wow.
Sunday.
Well, I'm a classic example of this game of two halves. This is a game week of two halves because Saturday comes. Lumen, I hit 70 points on Saturday
Wow.
alone of those games. Madness, madness.
How did you hit those 70 points?
Huge help from captaining Mo Salah. That has been a decision to get rid of Erling Haaland and bringing back Mo Salah. That I do not regret. He has been sensational the last 4 game weeks. So he hit 14, double him, 28 points of my 70. But away from Mo, actually, two defenders, Kanate, Ait Nouri, Wolves. But then my front line, Cunha, gets me 12 points. um, Wissa gets me 13 points. And actually, Mbuemo, who I brought in this week, instead, I got rid of Dwight McNeil, which was the right move in the end. He got an assist in the end as well.
I, I
So,
I'm gonna
70
stop
points.
pause you there because I took a sharp intake of breath
Go on.
because the forward whisperer strikes again. What is it with you? And just like I honestly think you should like I don't know what channel some sort of communication out there to the Premier League teams out there to say that if I've picked a forward in my fantasy team, so let's say Wolves, whoever they're playing next, you need to call the opposition and say you've got no chance, or call Brentford's opposition and say that's what you need to do. You could make a fortune by just giving that heads up. You could influence betting by doing that as well. I think you're onto something here with just how every week you're absolutely nailing these forward choices.
Hmm.
And I think you can make money out of it. You need to figure out, the money
I
is
need to
there in terms of
monetize
FPL
this.
points, but honestly, you need to go out there and do it.
Well, if I were that good, Chris Wood wouldn't be in my team this week, and he only got 2 points. So
Yeah,
maybe I could have picked
but
that
let's
instead.
stop you there, right? When we're talking about team of the week, Johan Wissa has got
Mm.
an ownership of 8%. Matthias Cunha has got an ownership of 9.8%. You've got ownership of both. What are the odds? There you go. So, but having said that, I was dreading what damage you would do on Sunday
Mm.
with a further one, two, three, four, five, 6 players left to play. And then what
Ah,
happened?
and that's when my game week kind of went sideways, unfortunately. Luckily, I banked those points because on the Sunday, of the five remaining players, I only took 9 points. And that's horrible. And they weren't chumps. Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, David Raya. Who else did I have playing on this? Oh, and I had the Forest boys, Ola Aina and Chris Wood. Nottingham Forest and Arsenal, both in terms of FPL at least, let me down. The Forest one was a difficult one to take because you're thinking at home,
It's a tough game against
Newcastle.
Newcastle.
It
Tough game.
is. It
I we said
is.
we said it in the preview last week. It's a tough
Mm.
game against Newcastle.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they got swept aside, and I wonder what that's going to do to Forest now. I wonder. Obviously, international break coming up. It was a very good win for Newcastle to do that.
Yeah,
What happens? How do Forest bounce back? They've got Arsenal next, but the one after that, Ipswich, but then Man City after that as well. So a tough few games, and actually, whilst he has been excellent for me, Chris Wood possibly can I'll try and stretch him to the Ipswich game, and then after that I might be getting rid of him from game week 14.
yeah,
Um, just because I think there are potential a few others which we can touch on. But yeah,
yeah.
that was me. I ended on 79 on an average of 49. I'll
Which is
absolutely
brilliant.
take that.
You must be over the
Absolutely.
moon because your one transfer of the week worked out as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Buemo for Dwight McNeil. It also puts me at the highest I've been so far this season, maybe apart from game week 1, 372,000th in the world, which is very, like, for me, considering last year was like 2 million,
You've jumped from
which is good.
863,000, so you've
It's not
done
good.
well there. I mean, meanwhile, I mean,
Mm,
it was a week of frustration for me because yet again I didn't have a bad week. I'm not
no.
having I'm not having terrible weeks, but every week for me it's a question of what if. Now someone
Mm.
might turn around and say, oh well, you can ask that of every team, but not necessarily, because my decisions um, are having a massive impact um, on some horrible performances. I had to compose myself before launching into this. So I got 65 points from an average of 49.
Brilliant.
Similar to yourself, I had Mo Salah as captain, got me 28 points. Brian and Bomo got me 5 points. Ait Nuri got me 6 points. You had Konate, I had Keller, got me 6 points, and Raul 5 points. So going into Sunday, I was on a healthy, let's work this out, 10, 38 at 12. I was on a healthy 50 points
Mm.
going into um, Sunday. Then on Sunday, I was relying on my two transfers, Son and Solanke, to do it. Now, I mentioned this in last week's show, and it's important to tell you this. I didn't do those transfers straight away because even though it's Ipswich, the bottom team, it was Spurs. I always say this, it's Spurs, it's bloody Spurs. And I finally made that decision Saturday morning. And look where it's got me. Had I left my team as it was, I would have had Haaland in the team. I would have got a couple more points, and I would have had
Fine.
those two transfers in the bank. I've wasted two transfers. I've
Mm.
completely wasted two transfers. So I'm stewing. I'm absolutely stewing at myself because it's Spurs. It's bloody Spurs. You said to me, "Oh, why do you hate Spurs?" I don't hate Spurs. They're just a stain on the Premier League. I mean, they're just an absolute stain on the Premier League. How are they ever afforded top six status? Like, come on. There's clubs like Villa and Newcastle and Brighton that are far more deserving than this steaming pile of crap. That's what they are, a steaming pile of crap. And you know, it's my fault for going full Spurs. Never go full Spurs.
Never go full
Um,
Spurs.
so yeah,
It,
there you have it.
in your defense, Lumen, and anyone who went for, like, Solanke was a big transfer in this week. It was a logical move. It was a logical move. I looked at Spurs' home fixtures. They have either scored 3 or 4 in every home game, apart from against Arsenal, which they lost 1-0. All the logic pointed to a massive Spurs win with minimum 3 goals. And you would have thought Solanke, a Son, Kulusevski, Madison. It was just actually, where do I put my transfer? That was the hardest question. I was very close to putting Kulusevski in for Dwight McNeil. I'm glad I didn't. I went in Bremo instead. But it was a logical move. It's just, as you say, don't go full Spurs.
Logic goes out the window with Spurs, as Sir Alex Ferguson once said to just his team talk. Um, in simple words, come on, lads, it's Spurs, and we'll leave it at that. I don't want to ruminate too much on that. But I did do okay in the end because Martinez got me some clean sheet points. I've spoken about Man United and clean sheets previously, so let's not go into that. So 65 off an average of 49, I'm going to be happy with. But what's interesting is obviously we're in various leagues, but in the different corner league,
Mm,
cousin Jimmy had a disastrous week, and both of
mm.
us have overtaken him. You've every week like dug in and got, you know, closed the gap on me bit by bit. And I was telling you this would happen, and the gap between us is 13 points now.
Wow. Okay,
So
I've not seen
yeah,
that.
let's see what happens with that. But some interesting games this weekend.
Yeah.
Brentford
Mm.
against Bournemouth.
Brentford, I think you described them as the league's entertainers this season. I think
Yeah,
you're right, man. They score so many goals, and yet they concede so many goals.
yeah.
Embuemo is now back. My worry about getting Embuemo in, and I wonder what will happen to him now. He had to take all the burden, and to be fair to him, he was smashing it while Wissa was away. Last year, while Tony was away, and this season so far, while Wissa was away. Now Johan Wissa is back. I wonder whether those goals are shared between them now, or whether Wissa just gets at the end of most because he plays more centrally, more
Yeah.
advanced. It feels like, and he benefited. But Brentford, man, you cannot get a Brentford defender or goalkeeper in, but certainly going forward, Wissa and Embuemo are surely got to be in people's thinking, and especially Wissa at what was he? How much is Wissa? Is it an easy transfer to make at 6.1? You know, that's an easy one to make. And they've got some interesting fixtures coming up. Everton, Leicester are the next two after the international break. Then a bit, but you just don't know what you're going to get with Brentford.
If you're smart, if you're smart, and I mean, and I don't, say this lightly. If you're smart, you've got Embuemo and Wissa. So
Mm.
there you have it. Do you know anyone who's got them both? Um, right. But let's let's also talk about Man United. And the reason we
Mm.
have to talk about Man United, apart from the fact that they've got a new manager, they've had a let's call him a new manager because the new manager was Ruud van Nistelrooy and they've had a bounce. And
Mm.
another reason why I was so annoyed with myself is because I strongly considered Bruno Fernandes for this past weekend, and
Ouch.
ouch indeed. I'm like kicking myself. You have no idea how much I'm kicking myself. But I think United
What
this season,
what tempted you away from him? Just very quickly. What made you
because
think?
because so far this season he's had a lot of promise, but he's not delivered. So
Hmm.
I just thought, he'd carry on in that vein. Boy, was I wrong.
Mm.
Um, United this season have been not been terrible at the back, right? They've got some good clean sheet stats, especially. So if we look at United, they've they've kept a total of um, so Onana is the number one point scorer for
Yeah.
goalkeepers,
Wow. Okay.
and he's kept one, two, three, four, five clean sheets in 11 games.
Wow.
That's not a
Wow.
bad return when other
That is
keepers
not bad.
um, are not even close to that. So
Mm.
we've spoken about it at length about United defensively, but going forward
Mm.
is where they've struggled up until the last couple of games. But the question is now, would you consider any of their forwards?
I I think with Bruno Fernandes, I didn't realize. I know he had a massive haul this weekend, 17 points, a
Yeah,
goal and 2 assists, and then the bonuses. But the weekend before, he got 10.
yeah.
So 2 weeks,
Penalty though.
two
That was a
double
penalty.
digits. It was a penalty.
Yeah,
But if he's if he comes back, if Manu come back into form, we know what Bruno Fernandes can do FPL wise. He has been in previous seasons a big
yeah.
player and in a lot of teams. He's at 11.3% ownership, which is higher than I thought it would be. But I think Bruno Fernandes will be someone to be considering, especially if you look at they've got Ipswich, then Everton, then Arsenal, then Forest. That some definite winnable games for the manager to get stuck in, new manager to get stuck into. Away from Bruno Fernandes, though, away from Bruno Fernandes, though, if I didn't have that what is Bruno Fernandes? £8.4 million. I've always been a fan of Garnacho. He got another goal at the weekend, no bonuses, so just the six. And at 6.4, yeah, you could probably say there's other players, but once Manu start rolling, I think he's gonna be up there. I really do.
I think the issue is with United, it's the best thing to do is hold tight and see what
Mm.
Amarim does, which players are in favour, which players aren't. One thing that United have done so far this season is not started Amad Diallo and Garnacho. It's always been one
Mm.
or the other, so you might want to hold fire on that. What I'm most interested in is what the forward whisperer has to say about Hoyland.
Well, so we know that from the start of the season, he wasn't even playing matches, right? It took him till game week 5, he was injured, and then 14 minutes and so on. Now he's slowly building up those minutes. So that's the first thing I'm looking at. Is he completing 90? He is not still completing 90. He's only completed 190-minute this whole season so far. And in that game, he did nothing. But Man, you have been terrible. Going forward, I did I even have Hoyland in last season? I don't may have ventured to Hoyland a little bit, but really there wasn't enough there. There wasn't enough there. And um, for me, if I'm taking this title, forward whisperer, I'm staying I'm staying mute on Rasmus Hoyland. It's a potential differential. He's 1.7% owned, right? There's hardly any teams that actually own him, but there's something about him. I don't think actually what it is I don't think he's going to get as many goals as the others in that price bracket. That's simply the case. Chris Wood, I think, will score more goals. Johan Wisser, I've mentioned. Brighton, João Pedro came back this weekend, did everyone a favour who's going for the league against Man City and bags goals. Once João Pedro is fit, you know he's going to be back in teams. So I've just named three of Cunha, four. There's four strikers at least at that price bracket, even cheaper that I would consider. And at that price bracket, it's just a bit more expensive. Nico Jackson is someone I would do more than Rasmus Højlund. So yes, maybe as a differential, but you have to be. Yeah, I'm not. I don't see enough yet.
What's the forward whisperer saying about Isaac?
Oh, now there is a player. As we know, Isak was like, I think I remember he was owned at 40% ownership at the start of the season because he was the one player who you thought premium and the price point was right. And then he absolutely flopped. He didn't hardly did anything at the start of the season. Then he got injured, and now all of a sudden, 4 games, 3 goals, three in the last three. And he's the thing is, I've always said it. When you get Anthony Gordon and Isak in the same team at the same time, that is when Newcastle going forward is what I'm interested in. Isak, absolutely. If Hoyland is, I don't even want to say a word about him. Isak, I'm definitely thinking. Chris Wood, I said I've got to take him out in probably a couple of weeks. The one who might force my hand even earlier is Alexander Isak because they've got West Ham at home next, Crystal Palace away after that. Isak is looking good, and you know he's a goal getter.
We talk often about run of fixtures, etc., right? Um, but we also talk about certain players and how important they are to a team, whether
Mm.
it's Rodri or the player I'm going to talk about is Martin Odegaard.
Oof.
Arsenal fans have been talking at length, and even I posed a question about how much you've missed Odegaard. Odegaard's back. You had your first choice team out on Sunday against Chelsea. Is this the return of the Arsenal of the last 2 seasons, and is it time to go all in on Arsenal?
I think that is can only be answered after the Forest game,
No, I'm asking you
maybe.
now. I'm asking you now.
If
You may.
I
I'm.
yeah.
I'm saying to you that Arsenal,
Hmm.
apart from Calafiori, who
Hmm.
might start a left back, but again, Timbers,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
it's like 1 and 1A between them.
Mm.
You saw the team. That was your first choice team on
Yeah,
Sunday, right?
yeah.
There's no injuries, right?
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah,
there's no
yeah, yeah.
injuries. Let's not. I'm putting a gun to your head now. What's going to happen with Arsenal? They've got their
Uh,
full team out now.
yeah. So once there is a slight injury, Declan Rice did play with a broken toe. However, what you're saying is he started, and going forward, if I'm being bolshy here, Lumen, and I'm not one to do it because I don't like tempting fate, but when I look at Odegaard back and Saka in the team, we're talking about Isak and Gordon for Arsenal. For me, it's Odegaard and Saka in there performing. Um, I think, oh, I hate to say these sorts of things, Lumen. I think we have to and will do go on a run. I don't know when, but basically, Arsenal need to know only have the choice. Liverpool are forcing our hand here, right? Man City have been dropping points. Liverpool have not. It's just that one blip against Forest, and the way they're performing and getting wins, they're setting the pace. So the only thing are, and what's the points difference? Like 9 points? The only choice we have is win, win, win. That's the only choice we have. So I'm going to go out and say Arsenal will win, win, win from the international break on. We need to do it, and we will, I hope, but will do it if we've got that full set of players with us. And I think it just makes a massive difference when
So,
someone,
so,
when we
so
get
what you're
everyone
saying
back.
is you're gonna go full DJ Khaled. You're gonna win, 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 no matter what. And on that basis, clean sheets are coming back, and the goals are coming back, and it's time to invest in Arsenal.
I think the clean sheets are coming back. My big worry about the reason I'm so hesitant about saying we got to win, 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 win is that it's not the back really. I know we've been conceding stuff. Odegaard helps that defensive unit weirdly enough, even though he's an offensive player. My worry and the reason I'm hesitant is because of our goal scoring output. We're just not like we if we didn't have to rely on Havertz, we would get a Trossard, we would get Saka. Saka has chipped in a bit. Trossard's dried up. Martinelli has been so inconsistent, though scored at the weekend. Havertz is he's not that full, that guy. He can be that guy, but isn't often the guy to get you every game, every game, every game. And so that's where my worry is goal scoring. Hopefully, Odegaard helps there. But yeah, certainly defensively, I feel I don't know what it is. I feel now that Odegaard's back weirdly that we will be a bit more secure, or a lot more secure, but can we get goals? That's the big thing for me right now.
There is plenty to look forward to. Unfortunately, not in the immediate future because we got another bloody international break.
Yeah.
Hopefully, once that international break's over, we'll be pouring over some more fantasy points. We'll be there. We'll be there next week doing a slightly different show. We'll do some previews of the games next week, but it was a good experience at Anfield. It's good to see us both doing decent at fantasy football as well.
But
So
we're doing all right, Lubin. But you know who's doing even better than both of us, not in fantasy football, but in real life? And you've avoided the question this whole time. But are Liverpool in this title race? Yes or no?
I was hoping you wouldn't catch me out, but look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Uh, my aim before the start of the season was top four. It's still the aim. We've got a nice cushion. Uh, Top four. I'll be happy. We've been lucky with injuries. Injuries and loss of form will impact us sooner or later. So I'm not going to get carried away.
Shall I tell you
If
who feels very differently to you? The tens of thousands of Liverpool fans in the stadium at Anfield on Saturday night. The overwhelming feeling I got when we heard the chant, the cheers when Brighton scored. We're walking to the stadium, pubs erupting around us because Brighton had got the winner. Because Liverpool, I believe the majority of the fan base, certainly from what I saw on Saturday night, believe, oh, Man City dropped points. Liverpool can extend their lead at the top. And the chant at the end of the game was something like Liverpool top of the league, Liverpool, Liverpool top of the league. Are you going to stay there? You think obviously there are extenuating circumstances. Yes, you're right. You've got to deal with adversity. I would say maybe the Forest game was adversity, and look at what you've done since then. But you're right. Let's see what happens if injuries happen. I think, as Arsenal, have suffered from that this season. I don't think we were used to it. Last season, it was a bit of a freak. We were so good without, with injuries. This season, not so much. And look what's happened to us. But it'll be interesting. Let's see. Let's see. But
I'm
I
I'm
think
gonna
Lumen.
I'm gonna finish off with the with a batshit crazy prediction,
Mhm,
and people listening to this will think I'm off my rocker, but I don't care. My prediction all along was a two-horse title race between Man City and Arsenal, with Man City winning.
yeah.
I've changed my mind.
Mhm,
And I've changed my mind to say that it won't be a two-horse title race. It will be a
mhm.
three-horse title race. With
If you don't say,
Man
go.
City winning,
Yeah.
Arsenal in the title race, and the third team, and I say this with a good deal of confidence, you watch. I'm telling you, you watch. It's going to be Man United.
Goodness me! I thought you were going to go for
They're back.
Chelsea.
They are back. There's only so it's like you can't keep spending 2, 3, 500 million pounds every bloody year and it to be failure. It's gonna be successful at some stage. What makes me make that prediction was seeing Ruben Amorim post match, and
Mm,
he looked like a presence. He looked like a character. United, 5 clean sheets in 11 games. They're not terrible at the back, right? He's gonna come in. There will be a new manager bounce. I'm telling you now, you're gonna see. Look at the league table. Leave Liverpool to one side. The gap is not big between like 13th and 14th and second, right?
mm, mm,
There's not that big of a gap. They're gonna be climbing.
mhm.
You're gonna see in a month or two's time. Damn, these guys are balling. Sky's the limit. So that's what I'm
But
gonna leave you with.
that also then means that Liverpool have to have a quite dramatic step down and fall down in form here, and
It's unsustainable. It's
I don't
unsustainable.
see
It's
it. No, I
unsustainable.
don't know. Just step on the ball. You don't have to do any running. Just stand on the ball. Go 1-0 up and just stand. You don't have to do any running for that, man.
It's
Just
it's
stand on the
unsustainable.
ball.
It's unsustainable. But there you go. Watch United, as Rio said, we're back. We're back. So they're back.
Well, we'll see. We'll see, and we will be there, Lumen.
We'll be there to watch it all unfold.